Okay, here we go. Stargirl chapter 19. Word of the day, new vocabulary word. You're going to learn about it. It's called shunning. When you shun someone, that's basically exactly what they have started doing to Leo and Stargirl in the hallway. You ignore them. That's the best synonym, if you will, for the word shun. When you ignore somebody completely, you don't talk to them, you don't acknowledge them, you almost pretend like they don't exist. And Leo, who do you think he's going to go to for advice? No other than his good mentor Archie. So let's go ahead and read chapter 19. Here we go. The Amish in Pennsylvania have a word for it. What's that? I said. Shunning. I was at Archie's. I had to talk to someone. Well, that's what's happening. The shunnee, or so to speak, has gotten himself in Dutch with the church, so he's excommunicated. The whole community's in on it. Unless he repents, nobody speaks to him for the rest of his life. Not even his family. What? That's right. Not even his family. What about his wife? Wife, kids, everybody. His pipe had gone out. He relit it with a stick match. I believe the idea is to drive him away, but some stay, continue working on the farm, having dinner. If he passes salt to the wife, she ignores it. If the bishop had his way, the pigs and chickens would ignore him. It's as if he doesn't exist. I nodded. I know the feeling. We were back on the porch. I stared at Senor Saguaro. He said, "Does it happen to you when you're not with her?" "No," I said. At least I don't think so. But when I'm with her, I feel like it's aimed at me too." A small pipe cloud from the corner of his mouth lifted. He smiled sadly. "Poor dolphin. Caught in a tuna net." I picked up Barney, the Paleocene rodent skull. I wondered if someone would be holding Cinnamon's head 60 million years from now. So what should I do?" Archie waved his hand. "Oh, well, that's the easy part. Stay away from her. Your problem's kaput." I sneered. "Great advice. You know it's not that easy?" He did know, of course, but he wanted me to say it. I told him about the Valentine, the night on the driveway, the walk in the desert. The question that came to mind then sounded silly, but it persisted. "Do you believe in enchanted places?" He took the pipe from his mouth and looked straight at me. "Absolutely." I was confused. "But you're a scientist, a man of science." "Man of bones. You can't be up on your eyeballs and bones and not believe in enchanted places." I looked at Barney. I ran my fingertip along the hard line of his 2-inch jaw, rough like a cat's tongue. 60 million years in my hands. I looked at Archie. "Why can't she be," he finished for me, "like everyone else?" He stood up and stepped down from the porch onto the desert, for his backyard, except for the shed where he kept his digging tools, was the desert. Nature did the landscaping. I put Barney down and joined him. We ambled towards Senor Saguaro. Not like everyone else," I said. "Not exactly, not totally, but Archie." I stopped. He stopped. I turned full face to him. My thoughts and feelings were a wild, conflicting jumble. After staring stupidly at him for a long time, I blurted, "She cheers for the other team!" Archie pulled the pipe from his mouth, as if to better digest my words. He raised one finger in the air. He nodded solemnly. "Ah, yes." We resumed walking. We walked on past the tool shed, past Senor Saguaro. Occasionally, I picked up a stone and flung it toward the purple maricopas. Archie said, almost in a whisper, "She's not easy to put into words, is she?" I shook my head. "An unusual girl," he said. "Could see that from the first. And her parents as ordinary in a nice way as could be. How'd this girl come to be? I used to ask myself. Sometimes I thought she should be teaching me. She seems to be in touch with something that the rest of us are missing. He looked at me. I nodded. He turned the mahogany bowl of his pipe upside down and rapped it with his knuckle. A small stream of ash spilled onto a thicket of dead mesquite. He pointed the pipe stem at me. You know, there's a place we all inhabit, but we don't think much about it. We're scarcely conscious of it, and it lasts for less than a minute a day. What's that? I said. It's in the morning for most of us. That's that time, those few seconds when we're coming out of sleep but we're not really awake yet. For those few seconds, we're something more primitive than what we are about to become. We have just slept the sleep of our most distant ancestors, and something of their world still clings to us. For those few moments, we are unformed, uncivilized. We are not the people we know as ourselves, but creatures more in tune with a tree than a keyboard. We are untitled, untamed, unnamed, natural, suspended between was and will be, the tadpole before the frog, the worm before the butterfly. We are, for a few brief moments, anything and everything we could be. And then he pulled out of his pouch and repacked his pipe. Cherry scent flew. He struck a match. The pipe bowl, like some predator or seducer, drew down the flame. And then, we open our eyes and the day is before us, and he snapped his fingers. We become ourselves. Like so many of Archie's words, they seemed not to enter through my ears, but to settle on my skin, there to burrow like tiny eggs awaiting the reign of my maturity, when I would hatch and at last I would understand. We walked in silence. Yellow blooms had appeared on a cactus, and for some reason that made me incredibly sad. The purple of the mountains flowed like a watercolor. They hate her, I said. He stopped. He looked intently at me. He turned me around and we headed back. He put his arm around my shoulder. Let's consult Senor Saguaro. Shortly, we were standing before the derelict giant. I never understood how the Senor managed to convey a sense of dignity, majesty even, considering his strict, rickety, see-through skeleton and the ridiculous leathery crumble of hide about his foot, his fallen breeches. Archie always spoke to him with respectful formality, as to judge or visiting dignitary. Good day, Senor Saguaro, he began. I believe you know my friend and the charter member of the Loyal Order of the Stonebone, Mr. Borlock. He whispered an aside to me. I'm a little rusty, but I think I'll use Spanish now. He prefers it in delicate matters. He turned back to the cactus. Parce, Señor Borlaug, aquí está victimina un shunning de un compañeros estudiantes en el liceo. El objeto principal del shunning es la ensamada blah blah blah. Let's try that again. Enamorada del Señor Borlaug, nuestra propia señorita niña estrella. Él está en búsqueda de preguntas. That means questions. As Archie spoke, he looked up toward the elf-owl hole. He now looked back to me and whispered, I asked for questions. Questions, I whispered. What about answers? He was turning from me, tilting his head toward the great cactus, his finger on his lips. Shh! His eyes closed. I waited. At last he nodded and turned back to me. The esteemed senor says there's only one question. What's that? I said. He says it all boils down to this. If I'm translating correctly, whose affection do you value more? Hers or the others? The senor says everything will fall from that. I wasn't sure I understood Senor any more than I understood Archie half the time, but I said nothing, and I went home. In bed that night, as the moonlight reached the high tide under my chin, I realized, in fact, I understood the question perfectly. I just didn't want to answer it. Hey, quick question here. Senor Saguaro talking. Hey, how'd you like my Spanish there, by the way? It was awesome. When a cactus is coming to life and pretending to talk here, they're giving him a human quality. Does anybody know what that's called? Bueller, anyone? Personification. You ever heard the word? You're giving an inanimate object a human quality. So a little personification going on there with Archie and Senor Segura. It's kind of cool. That question looms at the end there. Whose affection do you value more, hers or the others? Two things pop into my mind here. Number one, how do you think Leo would answer that question? Okay, that's a great discussion question. And number two, if you were in Leo's shoes, how would you answer that question? Wow. Would you answer it differently than him? Maybe you're a different person than Leo. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, and we're going to be on to chapter 20. We're over halfway through the book. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.